Welcome into NHL Tonight, first shift for Thursday, March the 6th, 2025. EJ Hradek, joined today in studio by Mike Kelly, a day away from the trade deadline. Good to have you here.
Great to be here in the studio, first time.
And we'll be here tomorrow during the trade deadline coverage. So we'll have it all for you right here on the NHL Network. So tune in. There's going to be a lot happening. JD is here again, and JD, big day. I got to meet your wife today. I got to meet the little dog today. Big day. Mike was out there. We had a nice time.
Huge day. Daniela actually texted me afterwards, and she was thrilled that she got to meet you because of Birdie the dog and not because I keep missing parlays. So
No.
She thought she was going to get called in when you were blaming
great puppy,
my
though.
nuptials.
Your parlays must be good. She's out there driving a new car. So, I mean, you really are hot right now.
New car, new puppy. Life is good.
All right.
Let's go, buddy.
Let's go. Let's get to first things first here.
What we got?
So many things going on around the National Hockey League right now. And Alex Ovechkin once again last night at the Garden where he likes to score. And look at the reaction, Mike. I mean, this guy, he is always pumped when he scores. And just continuing the chase, closing in on 99.
Yeah, it's like every goal is his first goal, the way that he celebrates, which is amazing. And he's been like that his whole career. It's incredible. So, yeah, 10 more goals, and he'll be the all-time leader. I didn't think at the start of the season there was a chance he'd do it this year.
Yeah, neither did I.
I didn't really think at the Four Nations break he would probably do it. Now I'm almost unquestionably, like, no doubt he's going to do it. Which, to do what he's doing at his age, at 39, like, one of the reasons Wayne Gretzky, jokingly or not, kind of talked about retiring is just, I think he said he only had, 9 goals in his last year? Ovi's gonna get 40 this year.
Yeah, he's got 32, and he's missed games.
Yeah.
So, his goals per game this year is terrific. Here's a look at goals by players age 39 or older.
So the biggest single-season goal totals by guys Ovi's age or older. Gordie Howe, when he was 40, hit 44.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if Ovi breaks the record this year, he will pass Gordie Howe as the most ever by a 39-year-old.
That's right. There you go.
So just lots of things for Ovechkin to break as he continues. And you know what? That goal, it's a great example of the best in the world still have to go to the net.
That's right.
And Ovi's always done it. You think about the one-timer from the dot and where he just stands there and nobody bothers him. The best in the world always still go to the net, and he does that well.
I'll ask you to follow up on that because you're so dialed into the analytics and the numbers. Like, when you look at the goal map for Ovi this year, is it any different than it's been in the past?
Not by any meaningful amount. You still do have his one-timers that he gets from
some over there, for sure.
But middle, top of the circle, and that inner slot area down by the front of the net.
Yeah.
Like, a significant chunk of his career goals and goals this year come from right here, around the net. And so, that's the thing where you have guys with elite shots, whether it's a Cole Caulfield or a Connor Bedard, younger guys.
Yeah.
It's great. Hang out in that mid-range area where there's not as many people to bother you, and you can shoot and beat goalies because you have a great shot. You ever want to get to 40? You ever want to get to 50? You need to get down around the net as well.
Got to get closer.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, listen, they haven't moved the net for as long as I've been watching hockey. I don't think they're planning on it. So
still there.
Get to that area, and it's been an unbelievable run for Ovi this year, and it's been an unbelievable run for the Washington Capitals. They had a little slide last week, but they're back on track, put a couple of wins together, and get the overtime win. Tom Wilson ends up with the game winner in overtime off a great pass from Strome. Always like to tell those defensemen, Schneider, stay on your feet. The good players will always find a way, and really terrific play by Strome. Great play by Wilson to get to the post there. And the Washington Capitals win that one in overtime, and they're right at the top of the league. What a story they've been. I mean, the Ovi story is one for all time because it's a record we never really thought was going to be broken.
Yeah.
But the Capitals, to go from a team that barely made it in last year, were a big minus last year as, goal differential, to being at the top of the league this year and playing so well. What a story.
Again, didn't see this coming, that they would be this good.
Nobody did.
No, good for them. It's one of those things where it's like kind of everything worked. Like, Dubois is a big gamble, just based on what we saw in those last couple of teams. He's been unbelievable. Strome as a playmaker for Ovi and others, unbelievable. Yeah. Logan Thompson at Lindgren, the goaltending has been great. Yeah. Everything's kind of worked. Chychrun's been great there.
Everybody's fit in perfectly.
Everybody's fit perfectly, and it's all worked well. And they're a team that kind of retooled, right? They had the benefit of having some cap room because of guys like, Backstrom and Oshie and money you can park. But they still went out and did everything the right way in terms of the guys they brought in. It's all worked. And think of the pipeline. You got Cole Hudson coming. You got
Hey,
Ryan
you
Leonard
got
coming
Ryan
this
Leonard
year.
is coming in April. When they finish at BC, he'll be part of this Washington Capitals playoff charge, and he is a heck of a young player.
Heck of a player.
Yeah.
Alexi Protas has been great. His brother's in the pipeline.
He's really good, yeah.
Hats off if I was wearing one, Washington Capitals. Well done.
They have done great. Even their minor league teams play well. So
Yeah.
Capitals have had a great season, and they get the win last night over the Rangers. And with the Rangers not being able to get 2 points, only get one, that opened the door for the Ottawa Senators as we got our daily look at these playoff chase in the East where teams are kind of going back and forth. And the Senators found a way to get it done, beat the Blackhawks in overtime. You can see a crazy goal here as it kind of just slips through with all the mess in front of the net. Soderblom ends up kind of back in the net with the puck. And the Ottawa Senators now jump into that final playoff spot.
Yeah, that's a big point for them because they've had these stretches where they haven't been playing very well. And they, talent-wise, should be a playoff team.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I say this about them often this year is like, there's an immaturity about their game where they can't consistently play at the level they're capable of.
Yeah.
And you watch them play some games and you're like, they could beat any given team on any night. They're really good. And then you play others and you watch them trying to defend and you're like, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
What are they doing out there? So they're in the mix. It's great. I don't know what you think.
Yeah.
You know, you'd look at their playoff odds maybe compared to a team like the Rangers who are kind of coming on now.
Yeah.
Who have Shesterkin.
Yeah.
And Miller's buzzing.
And the Rangers have the tiebreaker advantage over, I think, everybody pretty much when it comes to that regulation overtime win.
Okay.
They have more than everybody else. So that's a little bit, it's a small thing.
Yeah.
But when it's a tight race, that might end up being the difference for the Rangers. They have that experience. We'll see. They've been selling people off, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers still do something to add. If there's a big piece out there, I do think they're positioned, whether it be by Friday or maybe in the summer,
Yeah.
to do something else with that roster. And JT Miller's been really so good. So that'll be a
Yes.
challenge. Columbus, Detroit. You know, the Islanders are still hanging around. They're only a couple points back after losing
Canadians
twice
are
to
in the mix now.
Montreal has won 5 in a
Yeah.
row. They're in the mix. So
Yeah.
we got a ways to go down the stretch here. It's going to be crazy. But I like Ottawa's team. I mean, last year was kind of a wash. You know, they had a lot of things that went wrong within their whole ownership, changing ownership,
Sure.
management. A lot of things went wrong this year. There's no excuses. I think they should be there, but they've got to play well in these last 20 games.
Yeah, and they got to be healthy. Pinto is huge when he's in the lineup versus when he's not. And, you know, Tkachuk being healthy and key players, Josh Norris, obviously. When those guys are all in the lineup, their record's really good. And they haven't been in since 2017, so you feel like they got to get in this year. I thought they'd get in last year. I thought that was going to be their big push forward. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It's got to be this year.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, like I say, there's 20 games or so left, and it's wide open. Down the stretch they come.
Yep.
So it'll be fun to watch. We got 9 games on the schedule for you tonight, so it should be a really another interesting night. A lot of teams that need those points desperately are playing. And you have a really kind of an interesting matchup between Utah and Detroit. It's in Detroit tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern. And both teams, I mean, the Red Wings were in a spot. They've lost a couple in a row now. They need to get kind of reset. They're at home. They're taking on the Utah Hockey Club that in the West is trying to kind of push up in that spot. Calgary is tied in points with Vancouver, but they still have the tiebreaker advantage right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, St. Louis is in the mix. There's some news about the Blues we'll get to in a bit that could damage their chances. But this is a game that both teams really need points tonight.
They're looking for overtime, I think.
Yeah.
So everybody wants points out of this game. For sure.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't say this just because my 5-year-old son, Brooks' favorite team is Utah Hockey Club.
Okay.
And he has very specific reasons.
Long-time fan.
Long-time fan. It's the goal horn, the colors of the jersey, and the name.
Cool colors.
And he says Utah's 3 for 3. So
there you go. He likes the UHC.
Yes.
There you go.
Getting a little more scientific. We've got our playoff odds courtesy of Sport Logic. So Utah, it's not looking great right now in that respect, but here's why I think Utah has the better chance of them and Detroit getting in the playoffs. Okay. They have more teams to jump. They have more points to catch up with. They're playing better right now. Yeah. They got health now. Their goaltender has been terrific. And I don't really love the teams ahead of Utah, like Vancouver and Calgary. Like, I don't see them as these teams that are going to be buzzing the last 20 games. So why not Utah? I think they could be the story that sneaks in of these kind of bubble teams in both conferences. Detroit played really well when Todd McLellan came in for so long and hard to sustain that. they're kind of a mid-team and they're playing kind of mid-hockey. And
We've seen this with the Red Wings the last couple of years, right, where we think they're going to make a push,
yeah,
and then they fall back. I think this is a really important game on home ice for them tonight because they played well in the Stadium Series game. Really easily could have won that game.
Oh, yeah.
They lose to Columbus. They lost those back-to-back games to Columbus. They need to get it turned around now.
Yeah. And this is not an easy team to do it against.
No.
Like, the one thing I'll tell you, guarantee you will happen in this game, Utah's going to get the puck in Detroit's end. They're going to cycle it around, and try to jam it in front of the net and create offense. That's what they do as well as almost any team in the league, even though they're not a playoff team. So Detroit's going to have to just kind of sustain that and maybe counterattack. But they're going to have their hands full. And I'm with you. I think this is one of those games where you got to stop the bleeding now, and then 2 points. Move forward.
You got to stop it at 3. You can't get to 4, 5, 6. It just it'll end up costing them. Little note on the Utah Hockey Club as well. Karel Vejmelka re-signed to a 3 or 4 year contract, so we'll get more information on that. But he's signed, and so good news for him and for the Utah Hockey Club. I mentioned about the Blues and the news we have on Colton Parayko. This is from our buddy Jeremy Rutherford. Colton Parayko likely to miss the remainder of the regular season. He had a knee issue. And the Blues coming off an overtime victory, a shootout victory against the LA Kings last night. They were making a push-up in the standings. There was some thought about, are they going to sell? Are they going to try to make the playoffs? You see it right there. I mean, they're right in the mix. They're a point back. They played a couple more games than those other teams, but it could change the thinking for Doug Armstrong and company in St. Louis, because it's hard to move forward without your guy who's really your ace top defender. And they have an older group of defensemen there.
Yeah.
So I think this is a big hit for them. I wonder what they're going to do. Are they going to trade Braden Shen down the road? We'll see. But, boy, tough to lose Parayko at this time of year.
Yeah, no doubt. And they've been such a good story coming out of that Four Nations break, especially, right? Bennington just kind of carrying that solid play right through from winning, I don't know, gold or the trophy or whatever they won in the tournament.
The
big cup.
The big cup.
And he's been great ever since. And they're playing well. And Robert Thomas is buzzing. And then you're like, oh, man, now this. And we were talking about this off air. The first thing I thought of as well is, does that change the plan now with the trade deadline coming up in roughly 24 hours? Braden Shen, I don't think you would have thought of moving him as you're making this push. But now you're like, well, what if we could get really good assets back? Is it worth it? This, I don't know. To me, this is going to make it super hard for them to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
When it's already, you had to play so well just to get into the fight, right?
That's right. And they do have played 2 more games, so teams have games in hand on them. So, but hey, listen, we'll see what they decide to do there in St. Louis. Interesting though, Shen has been linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's been a lot of the conversation. Toronto put Ryan Reeves on waivers today. There's been a lot of guys that have gone on waivers as teams look to kind of shuffle their salary cap situation around. So that to me is a signal that the Toronto Maple Leafs, we figure they're going to do something. But Reeves, I think he's 1.15, somewhere in there against the cap. So we'll see if he clears waivers or if what they can do with him maybe to create space. But for St. Louis, that's tough to lose Colton Parayko. Hopefully, Colton, hope the recovery goes good. You're back playing soon. When we come back, it's that time of the week.
What do we got?
We got Dan Rosen is here with his Super 16. Sometimes it's super. More often than not, though, not as good. We'll check in with Dan. Next on First Shift. It is time for the Super 16 presented by Enterprise, and that means that man, Dan Rosen from NHL.com, our friend. He was here earlier in the week with me, but he's chosen now to do this list from a remote location somewhere under his home. So, welcome, and
thank you.
Let the carnage begin. What do you got?
Well, yeah, the carnage is going to begin today, and not only are you going to drill me, but Mike's going to kill me
That's
analytically too.
This
is going to be
this is
going to be
Hey,
problematic.
maybe I'll be on your side, Dan. We'll see how this thing goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's unlikely. It's unlikely. but all right. Listen, the Montreal Canadiens have won 5 in a row, but before that, they were 1-7-1. So what are they? They're in the Super 16 this week at number 16. The New York Rangers, 4-1-1 in their last 6 games. That's pretty good for the Rangers. Would have liked to got 2 last night, coming in a 2-1 lead in the third period, but you get 1 against Washington, you'll take it and move on. The New Jersey Devils, 1 win in their last 4. See, I wasn't ready to yet move Montreal or the Rangers ahead of the Devils and the Kings based on what we've seen all season. But give it another week, we'll see where we're at.
Yeah.
But the Devils right now, 9-13-3 when you go all the way back to December 28th. Hasn't been good. Jack Hughes is out too, obviously. Los Angeles, been a struggle, but before this struggle, 0-3-2 stretch, they were 5-0-1. So, again, is it just a little bit of a hiccup, or is this what the Kings are going to be? We got to give it another week, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad that you got the Devils. Like last week we talked about it. You got the Devils right where they need to be right now because it's been a struggle, and they've lost Hughes, and Dougie Hamilton's out for a couple of weeks, so that's got to keep an eye on them. I'll ask you about Montreal because, before we started here, Mike and I were talking a little bit about Montreal, and, they have won 5 in a row. So I agree with you to have them in there. They're playing well right now. But who are the other teams you were considering?
Well, Detroit, even though Detroit's lost a few in a row here, was definitely under consideration based on really, again, length, how they've played over that time. But they've lost a few in a row here, and Montreal's won a bunch in a row. So that's why where Montreal gets in at that point. And St. Louis was the other one that I was looking at as well. And easily could have been in, but I wanted to give the Canadiens and the Rangers a little bit of love here, just simply because of the way they've been playing. The Rangers are 4-1-1 in their last 6, and they're selling right now. So, let's see where it goes here. Montreal right now is gonna, they got Edmonton tonight. It's a 4-game road trip. Where are they going to be in a week? We'll find out.
We will find out.
The Canadiens. You go back to January-ish time. There was a 5-week stretch of the season where they had the best record in the NHL.
Yeah.
In the NHL,
and they were beating good teams. They were
beating
all those former Cup winners in recent vintage.
Yes, and then the dip. So, I'm always leery when you have a team that's out of it that wins a bunch to get there.
Exactly right.
Then they got to keep going. I have no problem with you putting them there. The other team I would just kind of keep an eye on is Utah.
Yeah.
I know they recent loss, but they're playing well. They could be sneaking up into Dan's 16, 15, 14 range.
Yeah. All right. Let's get going to the next 4. We're okay with you so far.
All right, so there you see the Edmonton Oilers. Now, it's been a struggle, obviously, for them. Again, you look at the length of what they've done this season. I wasn't ready to put them completely out, but where are they going to be in a week? Let's find out.
Yeah.
They do have Montreal tonight, 1-6 in their last 7 games. Columbus, 1-4 in a row. So let's talk about something positive here. They had 1-4 in a row. I knew they did lose to Tampa, but they've played well. And you go all the way back to December 19th. They got a .672 points percentage since then, and that's 4th in the league over that span for the Blue Jackets. Minnesota, I'm going to steal a line from one of my favorite movies, Rounders. They got alligator blood. They just keep hanging around. The Minnesota Wild just keep hanging around. 2 wins in their last 2 games after losing 3 in a row. Listen, we know they got injuries and cap issues, but 10, so they stay there. And the Carolina Hurricanes for 1-2 in a row, 3 of 4 for the Hurricanes. So you like what you're seeing, but what's happening with the Carolina Hurricanes right now? We don't know.
Mike, I don't think I have a big problem with that order. Because the Oilers are playing the Canadiens tonight.
Yeah.
So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. The hot team, the cold team, we'll see how it plays out. But I think I'm okay with that 4.
All right.
I got no qualms either. Edmonton has been legitimately bad.
Yeah, they
since
need
coming
to be
back
moving
from the
backwards.
They're playing bad.
Yes.
Their record is bad.
What's the numbers tell us about how they're defending and everything right now?
So, when you hear a player on a team talk about something as specific as like our rush defense, which we heard recently, they know what the problems are, and they're real. They're a team that kind of thrives on transition hockey. They score a lot offensively, quick strike. The rush defense has been great all year. 3rd in expected goals amongst all teams all year.
Yeah.
They are playing really poorly lately and have a lot of things to fix. So I got no qualms with Edmonton there.
All right, let's get to the top 8.
Let's go. Top 8. Here we go. Colorado Avalanche, big move up. They've won 3 in a row, beat Minnesota, beat New Jersey. This is the first 3 on a 6-game homestand, San Jose tonight. The Tampa Bay Lightning, so they lose to Florida. And it's interesting, right? All right, the Lightning, the way they've been playing, they could be higher on this list, I know. But some of these other teams have been playing really well, too. And they've so they've won 9 of their last 10. They get Bjorkstrand, Gord. You like it? They could be on their way, continue to climb up this list. The Maple Leafs lose in Vegas, but they're 8-2-1 in their past 11 games. And then you got the Vegas Golden Knights, who, listen, the Vegas Golden Knights, they got Riley Smith back now. They've won 3 in a row, 6-7, and they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-2.
All right, let me put those three teams in the right order. All right, because that's clearly incorrect. All right, let me get them in the right order.
Yeah.
The right order would be Toronto at 7, and then the right order then would be Vegas at 6, and then Tampa at 5. I've watched the Leafs, and this is where I think I have you here a little bit, is I've watched the Leafs a lot of late, and they've had this nice winning streak. But I think you probably saw the Rangers and Leafs play on Friday night at the Garden. The Rangers really outplayed the Leafs in that game. The Leafs beat Boston, came from behind. You know, they just look to me, they've been finding ways to win. They've had one of these winning streaks. When you really watch the games, you're like, boy, they could have lost all of them. So I saw it coming a little bit. They look a little fatigued. I love the Leafs. They're in tough in that division. But I just think Tampa's played so well. They easily could have won that game against Florida, hit the post at the end. I just think they're ahead of Vegas, and then Vegas is ahead of Toronto. So that would be the correct order, Mike. Do you concur?
Did you really, when you really watched the games, Dan Rosen, Dan doesn't watch the games? Of course he watches the games.
Yeah,
He's not the games
I wasn't at that game,
You
actually.
know,
I was
he's a celebrity.
I was in Columbus.
He's talking to people.
Oh, he's in the front row celebrity.
He's talking to people over there. The game is being played.
The kid from Stranger Things.
He's signing autographs. Exactly.
right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They put him
man.
on the camera at MSG probably now. Look, Dan Rosen is here.
I tell you what, I'm not going to pick on the list that much, Dan. I know EJ gets after you, but I would have Tampa. I could have Tampa Bay top 3.
Yeah,
like
see,
I'm not kidding.
The way they're playing right
and
now.
Dan
is
mentioned
there.
it, the way they're going, they could be moving up. He's aware. He watches the games.
Yeah, occasionally.
But yeah, that's the team I'm looking out for.
Absolutely.
All
Now,
right,
listen,
let's get to
EJ,
the
I'm
top
not going to
4.
argue with you here. All right.
Let's get to the top 4.
Florida, they did beat Tampa. They got Columbus in town. They've won 4 in a row, 6-7, 9-11. The Dallas Stars won 3 in a row, 6-7. They've just been really good, and 2 of their recent wins over the past month are against the Vegas Golden Knights, and now here 1-2, right? So Washington's won their last 2, hasn't looked great doing it, but the balance, the consistency throughout the season, they're staying where they're at, even though they previously lost 3 in a row. And the Winnipeg Jets, they get a reprieve for a week. You win 11 games in a row, you get a reprieve for 1 week. Maybe next week they won't be 1 if they continue down the current path. But right now, they got to stay at 1.
Okay, I like that's what I was going to ask you about. Winnipeg, they're making me a little nervous right now, but you bring up a good point. When you win that many in a row, we give you a little bit of breathing room for a week, but that's the team I'm looking at too, because they kind of do this sometimes. Like the last couple of years, they've gone through these big successful runs, and then they kind of peter off towards the end.
Like to see what they're going to do at the deadline. It's going to be interesting to watch with them. I listen, you could have flipped Washington and Winnipeg, but that's neither here nor there. I think altogether, pretty good job this week.
Okay.
But, pretty good job. But like I said, I just think that, you just got to rework that 6, 7, 5, 6, and 7. You'd be fine.
I'll take it.
All
I'll
right,
take it.
there you go.
Listen, I'm going to take that as a win.
Not bad.
He puts the list out at least. You
I
just
know.
chirp his list.
Of course.
Where's your list?
That's my job. That's my job.
We talk about that every
He's got
week,
the
Mike.
sponsor,
I mean,
Enterprise.
he's
I mean,
yet to do
he's
it.
riding around town with a free rental-car all week. Crying out loud. Anyway, all right, Dan. Thanks for the time,
All right.
buddy. We'll talk to you
All
next
right,
week.
thanks,
and
guys.
listen, I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll probably talk during trade deadline, find out what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
All right.
Big day.
Dan
All right.
Rosen, the one and only. All right, coming up next, we're gonna even go better. We got Eddie O coming up next. Eddie O joins us to talk about everything around the league coming up on First Shift.
Super 16 is presented by Enterprise. We're here to keep you moving forward, whether it's around the corner or around the world. Official partner of the NHL.
Well, it is trade season, and here's a note from Peter Baugh, the Riley Smith. Traded from the Rangers to Vegas for Brendan Brisson, a former first-round pick of the Golden Knights. So that's what they do with first-round picks. They trade them eventually. And San Jose's third pick, that was per source, but that is happening. And with that, we bring in the one and only, our friend of the show, the great Eddie O, Eddie Olczyk. And I just want to start, Eddie, by just saying, I want to thank you because all these years, NHL Live, NHL Now, NHL First Shift, whenever we've reached out to you to do the show, you always do it. That's not always the case for a lot of big stars like yourself. So you've always been, but seriously, you've always been a great friend of the show. And so thank you for taking the time today. We appreciate it. Start with Riley Smith because you were just in Vegas. You called Vegas and the Leafs last night.
Yeah.
Did you expect that would be where he would end up back in Vegas?
Well, first off, EJ, great friend you are and always have been. So anytime you need me, you know where I am. And Mikey Numbers, nice to be with you here from the Alfred E. Hitchcock Suite in Nashville, Tennessee.
That is an ominous bird over your shoulder.
Well, I know. Yeah,
Just staring at you.
I think they filmed it here in 1950s. I think the last time I checked on it. So if it starts moving,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
I mean, I think a depth pickup for Vegas. I mean, I still think that for the Vegas Golden Knights, they probably would like to fill that spot of Will Carrier. That type of player, Mikey and EJ. Somebody that can be physical, somebody that can, maybe play a matchup game for Bruce Cassidy.
Maybe Tanev from Seattle, where you're familiar with.
I think he would be, and he would be a heck of a pickup for I'm sure there's probably 10 or 12 teams that would love a guy like Brandon Tanev. So yeah, somebody like that. So again, not knowing the salary cap and what they have and what they don't have. But Riley Smith, look, he's been around. He's familiar obviously with the Vegas Golden Knights. So, hopefully he gets an opportunity to pitch in, because look at Vegas. They should make a deep run. I mean, if they can get Carlson back and get Theodore back at some point, and I'm sure that George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon aren't done yet. Yeah. I'm sure they're working the phone lines. So, a depth type of pickup there for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, other side of that game, Eddie, is the Maple Leafs. They came in pretty hot into that game, and Vegas kind of put it away in the first 10 to 15 minutes. But I think a lot of Maple Leaf fans this year are hoping, and the team hoping, we built this team a little different. We think it can be more successful in the playoffs. From what you've seen from the Maple Leafs this year, what are your thoughts on that and the group as a whole?
Yeah, I expect a run from this team. I really do. You look at the acquisitions on the back end, and I think Chris Tanev is, talking to Craig Berube last night before the game in Vegas, kind of got the sense that Chris Tanev had a chance at playing last night, but I think they maybe thought better of it, and seems like he's very, very close to getting back in. You bring in a guy like OEL, who Stanley Cup winner, experience, helping Morgan Riley on the back end. He probably still need another D-man of some sort on the back end. So, but I like their team. I mean, I think that they can. Again, depending on matchups and who you end up playing, I mean, that'll end up dictating everything. And look, who they get in the first round, I think will determine a lot of what happens moving forward. At least what I would think is moving forward, because they will be judged come playoff time. So I do like their team. I mean, the goaltending's been pretty good. Like last night, I think it was a culmination of schedule. They were on the road for 4, went home for 1, flew to Vegas. Vegas had been rested. Yep. They just caught him. Woll did not play well. I mean, the second and third goals last night, the Howden goal and the Eichel goal, I didn't like. And obviously Craig Berube didn't like it because he ended up pulling him out of the net. So I think the Leafs, my expectations in the summertime with what they did, and kind of the ups and downs in the regular season and into the playoffs the last couple of years, I expect this team to make a run, and I think that obviously they will be judged on what happens starting, about April 19th or April 20th.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm going to stay in the Atlantic Division, Eddie, and get your thoughts on Tampa and Florida, because Tampa just acquired a couple of guys from the Kraken that you see those guys well. They obviously know Yanni Gourde very well in Tampa. They got Oliver Bjorkstrand as well. They give up some significant draft pick capital to make this happen. Give me your thoughts on both the Lightning and the Panthers. The Panthers went out and got Seth Jones, so, I mean, that was a big acquisition. Yeah. I mean, it seems like these teams are ready to be there again.
Yeah, I mean, a hell of a haul for Ron Francis, general manager of Seattle Kraken. With losing a guy like Yanni Gourde, who's very familiar and Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, a heart and soul type of guy, a character guy. He's going to bring you into the battle, and I think that that's something that, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, the familiarity about him and knowing him is that, he's going to be there for you. He can play wing. He can play with, Point and Kucherov, or, he can play with Nick Paul and Oliver Bjorkstrand or Brandon Hagel. I mean, he can go up and down the lineup. So, I mean, he's a winner. He's one of those guys that plays in today's game, Mikey and EJ, that I would have loved to have the opportunity to play with a guy like Yanni Gourde. You know, he's just an infectious person, and I'm happy for him that he's going to a place that he knows and he's got a chance to win. As far as Oliver Bjorkstrand, in particular with the move, it gives him depth. He can, you know, he has the ability. I mean, he had a game 7 of a lifetime a couple of years ago when the Kraken took out the Colorado Avalanche when Philip Grubauer stood on his head in that series, and they beat the Avalanche 2-1 in game 7 in Colorado. He had both goals in that game. And oh, by the way, he had 4 goalposts in that game as well. Wow. I mean, he was absolutely dynamite. He's a much better defensive player than I think people give him credit for. He's going to get a heck of an opportunity. But when you're talking specifically about both of those teams, I mean, it is the Battle of Florida, because you know, you could play a 15-game series, and you know, quite frankly, I mean, it could be 8-7. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So it's going to be a battle, and you know, unfortunately, looks like we're going to lose a really, really, really damn good team early in the playoffs. But that's just the nature of the beast. So, but I like the moves. I like the depth on the back end there with Florida, with getting Seth Jones there. As far as the Florida Panthers, now the health of Matthew Tkachuk is probably, you know, right at the top of the list. There is, you know, is he going to be okay? And you know, what else does Bill Zito do here down the stretch, and maybe tweak a little bit to give themselves a chance to win another cup their second cup in a row.
Yeah, just sticking on the Seattle side of things, you move a couple guys. I mean, they could move a couple more if they want to. I don't know how aggressive they want to be as sellers here, but you think about Alexiak or McCann.
Sure.
What do you think they might do, or what would you do if you were in Seattle's position when, you know, this is another year where they're on the outside looking in and they're still trying to build towards next year and beyond?
Yeah, well, look, Mike, let's just call it what it is. I mean, it's been a disappointing season. Like, I think the roster assembled by general manager Ron Francis at the start of the year, when you look at him going get Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson, this is the best roster the Seattle Kraken have had in their very, you know, short time in the National Hockey League. They haven't been able to get it done. I mean, that's just the reality. I thought they were a playoff team. I did. And again, I know the trades that just happened, but even up to 5 days ago, the roster assembled, I think, was good enough to make the playoffs. And obviously it isn't right now. So when you're moving out character guy like Yanni Gourde, like Oliver Bjorkstrand, Brandon Tanev doesn't look like he's going to play here tonight in Nashville. His contract is up. He's an unrestricted free agent. So I'm sure Ronnie Francis is getting a lot of calls on a lot of guys. And you also have to think about tickets for next year, Mikey. You have to think about, the current roster that you have, and, can you do a very quick retool and maybe use some of these assets that you're getting in these trades, with Tampa and anybody else that he does business with. Can you use those maybe and flip those and maybe make a hockey move the other way coming around, where right now you're garnering assets as far as, picks. So it'll be really interesting. I'm sure he's fielding a lot of calls, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of no's on his line on particular players that, maybe teams are calling on. But, hockey for hockey trades are probably way easier to make when we get to post Stanley Cup and right around the draft. So we'll see how it all plays out. But, it certainly looks like Brandon Tanev's going to go. But look, I think we had a situation a couple of years ago, right? I think somebody sat out, and he might have been Chychrun, right? Wasn't it Chychrun down in Arizona?
Yeah. Sat out for like a month.
He sat out. Yeah, he was out 6 weeks. So it's like, no, we're not going to trade you. And you're going to, okay, well, I'm going to come back. So,
all right.
I don't know if they can do that for broadcasters. So my phone is on silent, and I think that bird just moved. So maybe we should end this call here.
All right. Hey, one more for you. And I think the bird's eye has been moving back and forth. So you might want to keep track of that. Yeah. Last thing. If you're the Carolina Hurricanes, Mikko Rantanen situation, he says he's not going to sign, tomorrow. So they're going to have to play out. You're in charge there in Carolina. What are you thinking?
Well, I would have known what he was thinking before I made the deal. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
But now you get to this point and you haven't, unbelievable asset. Would you guys not agree if he is on the board? Is he not the number one player available, at least that we know of.
Yeah.
You guys feel that way, right? So, if you know 100% that he's not going to sign, I mean, I think you got to get something for him. I don't think that you can just be caught at the table there and lose him for nothing. Now, you can use them as a rental for sure.
Yeah.
Like if you think you got a good enough, if the Carolina Hurricanes think they have a good enough team, and look at times when they play and they get the goaltending, like they can, they can put a run together, right? They do have that ability. So maybe if you use them as a rental and then you trade his rights to somebody for I don't know, second rounder, maybe somebody wants to get dibs on him before he hits free agency.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be the best that you can do. But I would imagine if he's available now, I mean, I got to imagine that there are, 4 or 5 teams that are willing to really, how good would he look in Winnipeg? To put them, I mean, as a rent, I mean, I would assume as a rental, but like you think you got a chance to win the cup. I'm sorry, I'm going all in. So I would, if he doesn't sign EJ and Mikey, I would say you got to move him.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch for sure. We'll be keeping a close eye over that next couple of days. Eddie-O.
You're still good. You're still good.
Thought he moved. I better get another room out of here.
That eye, I think, has been going back and forth. So somebody is keeping an eye on you, Eddie-O.
Yeah,
so
great.
be careful.
We're not seeing eye to eye right now. I'll tell you that.
All right, my friend. Listen,
tell that Dan Rosa too to work on that double 16 super. Every time it changes. What is it there?
Yeah, and give him a call sometime when you have some time and help him out because he clearly needs it. Clearly needs it. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, boys.
All right,
Appreciate
Eddie-O.
Eddie.
The great Eddie-O. Thanks so much for taking the time. And coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit more about Mikko Rantanen and what the options are for the Canes. That's next on First Shift. All right, here is a note from Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period, our buddy, and he'll be part of our NHL Network trade coverage tomorrow. Mikko Rantanen is open to signing an extension with, quote, the right team as part of a sign and trade. It's one option believed to be available in a fluid situation and would help maximize a return for Carolina. Everything seems to be on the table, including the Canes keeping him. So, we talked to Eddie-O a little bit about Mikko Rantanen. Let's talk a little bit about it here. I mean, it is such a unique spot for Carolina. I mean, they went out and traded for one of them. They knew that he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. They've made a very good offer financially. They can give him the 8 years, especially if they don't trade him by tomorrow and they hold on to him. They're still the only team then at that point that could give him 8 years.
Yep.
So there is an advantage there. The numbers haven't been there in Carolina. He's only played, a dozen games, but
6 points.
6 points, not very good. I mean, he had 49 games in Colorado. He had 64 points. So, I mean, there was a big difference. Now, he was familiar with there. He had McCarr, McKinnon, guys around him that he's played with for a long time. But, when you look at Rantanen, for teams that might want to acquire him, let's say Carolina just decides it's just too big a risk for us, like, what do they get?
Well, a lot of people are going to tie what he did to McKinnon with, well, how much of it was McKinnon then maybe, right? I think if you're going to look at that, you have to look equally at, well, how much of this is Carolina?
Yeah,
because
that's right.
Not only is it you don't have McCarr and McKinnon, and Carolina's got a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
Colorado, the way they play versus the way Carolina plays is about as opposite as you can kind of get. One's a quick strike, fast up and down team. Carolina's more chip and chase, and we all know that the way they play the game.
Yeah, they're moving north all the time, but they do it in a different way.
Very different way, right? So what you're getting with Mikko Rantanen, you're getting a superstar.
Yeah.
You're getting a superstar winger. I'd have no reservations about the type of player I'd be getting with Mikko Rantanen.
And a playoff monster.
Monster.
Really. Yeah.
Is literally his points per game are better in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. So he's won a cup. He was a big part of that cup win. If I was looking to acquire him, no problems there. I think the thing with Carolina is when they made the trade, you would hope that they made the trade with the thought that, look, we want to re-sign him. We hope we can re-sign him. But if we don't, because we don't know, we're still comfortable with what we're giving up, even if he's a rental.
Yeah.
Because if that ends up being the case, then you still gave up the same assets, right? The other factors that go into this as well are like part of re-signing there. It's not just we can give him 8 years, we can give him $100+ million. Nobody else can match that per se. Does the player want to play here long term?
Yeah.
Does the player every winger thinks about who's my center.
Yeah.
And he's got a good one in Aho,
Yeah,
but
for
it's not McKinnon.
Yeah.
And it's not some other guys who could potentially.
But you're not
be
going to
out
have
there.
McKinnon almost anywhere, right? Like, he's one of a kind. Like, unless you go to
Right.
Edmonton, you get McDavid. You go Colorado, you get McKinnon. After that, the list starts to thin out.
It's the top of the top with Nathan McKinnon, unless
Yeah.
you're somehow putting him in McDavid,
Yeah,
right?
that we don't know about. Right? Yeah,
Exactly.
something else. Yeah.
But just things that these guys will
Yeah.
always be considering, right? How do you play? So a lot of that goes into it. Sign and trade, like, to me right now, it seems less likely than he just
it's late in the
stays.
game
It's late
for
in the
that.
game for that. And
Yeah.
I know that that's something that's been explored over the last number of days.
Unless he does have a place in his mind, because we're not mind readers, we can't get into his heart. But like, I would imagine we're all human beings, right? Like, he probably has a couple places in his mind that is like, boy, maybe I'd love to play for the New York Rangers. Maybe I'd love to play for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm just throwing out teams, right?
Right.
Like, we don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the scenario for a sign and trade where if behind the scenes it's been communicated, hey, if you can make a deal here, we would sign there, and then the chance, as Dave points out in his tweet, for return would be better. But again,
That
trying
helps
to read the guy's
Carolina.
mind. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know that helps Mikko, who can just.
But it helps him if he wants to go to a certain place, right?
If he wants to go
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
it helps him.
That's right.
But he could still wait until the summer.
That's true.
And have a
And then
bidding
have
war and still go
choose
wherever
anybody.
he wants. So
Yeah.
for him, I don't know that it's any better or worse or
Yeah.
whatever. But anyways, look, Carolina, I don't know if their expectation was we're so confident we're going to be able to sign him.
Yeah.
I'd be really surprised at this point that they sign him obviously before tomorrow or even in general long term. And so now it's, well, can we get enough back to move him, which they're looking at?
Yeah. Or
you
just
go
make a run.
You go on a run, and they're a good team, and he's a great player, and,
right.
and you hope that fit improves as you go, and maybe look, if Carolina goes out and wins the Stanley Cup with Mikko Rantanen this year, and they never see him again,
They're happy.
they're happy.
They're happy.
right? That's
There's
a
no
win.
question about that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the team that that I thought like about 10 days ago, I'm thinking the Devils and Canes could just start their playoff series. They're locked into that 2-3.
Yeah.
Well, a lot has changed, right? I mean, the Canes have had some struggles, and the Devils, they've struggled, and now Jack Hughes is out for the season.
Yeah.
And Dougie Hamilton is week to week. These are big losses. They went out and made a minor trade today to get Brian Dumoulin from Anaheim. But what do the Devils do right now? If you're Tom Fitzgerald, what are you doing? Do you try to make a move to help your team? I mean, with Jack Hughes out, I don't think there's a move out there that you can make to replace him, although you do have that LTR money if you want to spend it.
I'm with you. You can't replace him. I don't even think you can replace him by bringing a couple pieces in and trying to fill that gap. So my stance would be, look, we've got a good team. We're fine. Dumoulin's going to eat some of Dougie Hamilton's minutes. He's obviously not the same player. But like this, sometimes it's just not going to be your year.
Yeah.
Now, that's my thought with New Jersey. This isn't going to be your year this year. And so I wouldn't be giving up assets to try to make a big haul at the trade deadline personally. But I don't know what your plan of
Look
attack.
at that goals there. That's even with Jack Hughes from
I know.
these games. I mean, 2.43 goals for a game. 30th in the league during this span. And they've been shut out, I think it's 7 times this year. It's kind of crazy to think, because when you watch the Devils play, when they are clicking, and with Bratt, and when Hughes was healthy, and Heischer, I mean, they're a team that can create energy and create offense. You wouldn't think they would have that problem, but it has been a real struggle for them, and now they lose these players.
Yeah.
There's all those other issues, though, Mike, right? Like ownership and upper management is like, hey, we don't want to miss the playoffs. So, like, there's a push there. So, I think they will try to do something to ensure that they stay in the playoff run. But again, I don't know what there is for them to do. And then do they want to give up big assets like a Nemish or a Casey, 2 right-shot young defensemen they have in their system? I don't think they're ready to do that yet either.
Yeah. So you do maybe some tinkering, middle 6 center kind of thing. You fill it by proxy and with other guys. They should still be in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're still a playoff team. But
they're sliding, though.
Look, you brought up a great point, even with Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
And that's what surprised me this year about New Jersey.
Yeah.
I thought they'd be contending for top spot in their division, probably winning it. No, I didn't see Washington coming, neither did you or anybody else. But yeah, as great as that's been for the Caps, it's kind of been the opposite for the Devils, who are still good, but having problems I didn't see them having.
Yeah, and they're going to have to play a little different way. I mean, and Dougie Hamilton out week to week, big issue.
Big issue.
Eats a lot of minutes.
Yep.
For the New Jersey Devils.
Yep.
So we will see. There's gonna be a lot of things happening between now and tomorrow at 3 Eastern time. We'll be here right on the NHL Network to keep you posted on everything that's going on. When we come back and talk a little bit about John Gibson. He made a silly stop in the game against the Canucks. Look at that. John Gibson chat. That's next on First Shift. You know, I always thought John Gibson had something up his sleeve. But, I mean, wow. Look at this save, Mike, behind the back.
My elbow hurts watching that. I mean, the first save was incredible. The second one, unbelievable.
Wow. John Gibson, what a save.
Woo.
They ended up losing the Canucks last
Those
night. And
Canucks jerseys, though,
you like them, huh?
they're my favorite.
right.
And they only wear the black ones,
Yeah.
the white skate.
Uh-huh.
Bring them back. Bring them back.
All right, I like that. But Gibson, he played great. The Canucks win, so you know they're in that battle trying to get in the playoffs. But John Gibson ends up getting dinged up in the game, lower body injury, so we'll have to wait what goes on there. But you know, we're talking about if goalies move. John Gibson's got to be at the top of the list, right? If you're looking for a goalie, you're serious. You're probably calling Pat Verbeek. He's got 2 years left, $6.4 million. You'd probably hope Anaheim would eat some. I mean, they've been hesitant to trade him. We never know if Gibson wants to leave Anaheim. Who would? It's a lovely place to live. But what do you make of the situation there?
I know. I think he probably would go to a contender, I think.
But we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, he never really said.
He's been in the conversation for 73 years.
I know.
We don't know.
It's true.
Look, I said a year ago I thought Edmonton makes sense. I still think Edmonton, I think they can win with their goaltending, but their odds of winning with stronger goaltending is greater.
Yeah.
And they're dollar in, dollar out. I get it, but you can find ways to make the money work. There's other teams too. Like, I like him. He's a guy I would say, go get it, have Anaheim retain, and make it work. Does he want to go? We don't know.
That's a big change of life going
and
from Anaheim to Edmonton.
It is.
Yeah.
But I like Edmonton.
Yeah, I do.
As a
It's
Canadian.
lovely place. Lovely
you know
place.
what? The Ducks goaltending this year has been like top 5 in the league.
And they've got
in the league.
Dostal waiting there, right?
It's been so good. And Gibson's been great.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what Pat Verbeek does. It's going to be a busy 24 hours.
Yeah.
We'll have it all for you right here on the NHL Network. NHL Now is coming up next. Mike, we'll be back here tomorrow. Breaking down the trade.
I'm pumped. Hopefully the Gibson, if he does get traded, between 2 and 5 Eastern time. That's when we're on the air. Think of us.
Think of us.
Think of us.
If you could. We'll see you tomorrow. NHL Now coming up next.